Okay, we're now recording. So welcome everyone. We are expecting quite a high number today. Lots and lots of people have registered for this webinar, which is fantastic. We are, as I say, delivering a series of 6 webinars all around citizen science and research and the good things that that can do and how you can improve citizen science so that it can better support research, so that it can deliver better impact for communities, for policies, for other things. And this is the second in that series. Today we're going to be talking about citizen science and the value of citizen science for research. And my colleagues will be doing most of the talking once we've got through the introduction slides today. So very briefly, just to introduce ourselves, we'll start from the top left. Leslie?
Hey, good morning everybody. My name's Leslie Parsons. I'm Director of ALP Synergy. I work alongside Ant and Paula. My background is I had probably about 30 years with the Environment Agency, environmental monitoring, water quality. I did quite a few citizen science projects and really happy to share some of my learning with you guys.
Fantastic, thank you. And then that's me in the first person in the group of 4 photo. So that's the River Mitti in Mumbai when we were there in September. So I'm a director of ALP Synergy, work a lot with universities, businesses, and the space between research and impact, helping to connect communities, stakeholders, thinking about water quality, water quantity, flooding. We do a wide range of projects. So yeah, we're really excited to be in this partnership.
And I'll introduce my colleague John Bryden, who you will be meeting in a future webinar. He is the Senior Programme Manager for Thames 21, and Thames 21 is a waterways charity based in London, and a large part of our role is evidence around water quality issues involving reconnecting local communities to their river and helping us to gather that evidence.
Hi, I'm Dr. Sarah Cook. I'm from the University of Warwick. I'm an environmental scientist and my work is very much focused on water quality and emerging environmental contaminants, and I'm actively looking to build citizen science capacity into my own research.
And hello, it's me again. It's Natalie Gilbert. I'm the Evidence Programmes Manager at Thames 21. So my background is also environmental science, and I'm leading on various different projects involving various different strands of evidence, and all of which involve the communities and local groups.
Thank you. Sarab, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Saurabh, and on behalf of Earth5R team, and Earth5R is a sustainability-based organization from India, working in 52 countries around the world, UK being one of those countries. And we are into circular economy, and what we do is like we work around different sustainability issues in business model kind of approach, where we create services and products around sustainability. So projects have social, environmental, and economic impact, and they're all driven by citizens. So we have a citizen science at the center of our business model and our programs. Earth5R started something around 5 years back, and next to me, as you can see, that's Amit Gupta, who is waterworks engineer with Earth5R, one of the volunteers, and he specializes into river and water ways engineering, civil engineering by background. And to the next to Amit is Mrs. Bharti Marathi, who is an environmental architect, and she is a designer of community programs and circular economy programs, waste management programs, and different types of environmental programs she designs. And she's also a professor of environmental architecture in Mumbai University. So that's about Earth5R.
Fantastic, thank you, Paula.
Hello, I'm Paula Nixon. I am an environmental scientist, regulation practitioner and innovation practitioner. I'm consulting to ALP Synergy, and today I'll just be working on the chat.
Fantastic, thank you everyone. So we can see that many of you have already introduced yourselves on the chat, so we're getting to know you a little bit, and obviously you've signed up, so we have some of your background a little bit, but it would be great if we could just launch a little poll. So for those who were with us last week, some of the questions in here are the same, but there are some different questions. So just a little poll for us to get to know slightly better who is on the call. And I'm launching the poll now, so you should be able to now go in and vote. Just a little tip that you can't submit your poll until you've answered all of the questions, so you need to answer all of them. We'll give you a moment to do that. I'm not seeing much action, so hopefully you can see the poll. Oh, there we go, it's starting to add up. Okay, we're nearly there. About 75% of people have completed, so just waiting on the final few. Nearly. There's 3 people left to complete, so we'll give another 10 seconds for you to complete, hopefully, and then we'll end the poll and share the results, and we can have a quick discussion on those. The poll is anonymous, obviously. We don't get to see who ticked the I am an expert box and then unticked it. Okay, right. So I am going to end the poll there then, and we can share the results. So just in terms of who we've got on the call, it looks like we've got the majority of the people on the call would class themselves as a researcher. 24% do declare that they are a citizen scientist, which is good already to have that sort of insight. How much do you feel you already know about citizen science? So here we have 67% say they know a little, 33% say quite a bit, and 5% say quite a lot. So that's a good spread. And what's really good is that, you know, we shared quite a lot last week from a UK perspective. Today you're getting a balance of UK and India perspective, and next week we'd really like to hear more from India. So next week's webinar, there's an opportunity for other people to be presenting and be on the panel. So we can come back to that in a moment. And then question 4, what do you believe are the key added value points from citizen science? And you could pick more than one here. So allows more data to be collected, has got quite a high score, 62% think that's good. Volunteers are free labour, 10% think that's one of the key points. I mean, in some cases that's partially true, but Natalie did mention last week, you know, you shouldn't be seeing it just as free labour. We get a wider insight from including citizens, 76%, that's great. Helps to win funding bids, quite a low score on that one. I think it probably does, so maybe we can explore that. Helps to connect science with society, so 95% ticked that one, which is brilliant. And I think we may not have mentioned, but this project is part funded by NERC, the UK Natural Environment Research Council. So, you know, they are funding activities like this because they realise they want to better connect science with society. So So that is good. And then last of all, other. So one person said there are other key value benefits. So maybe we can hear from that person next week. So I'm going to stop sharing the results and move on. Close the poll. So next slide. Just a few housekeeping points then. And I think next week I'll bring this one forward because there's some things that you might want to see before. So you'll see you've now got a frozen window on the right-hand side with our smiling faces. That's there deliberately so that I can show you right up in the top left-hand corner, there's a small bar, a thicker bar, and a double bar. If you haven't already worked it out, you can use those buttons to minimize our images. If you pick the small bar, then you'll only see the speaker. So you should only see me speaking at the minute. If you pick the double bar, then you'll see everyone, but it might be blocking some of your slides. So as we said, we're recording the webinar. This is a webinar, so you're all muted, but you can comment and discuss through the chat. And when we have a discussion point later on, if people really want to, I can enable your microphone so that you can contribute. You should be able to see the panelists. You can get rid of us if you want to. And if you're in the chat, don't forget there's the little bit where you can select all panelists or all panelists and attendees. So, right, I'm going to stop there now and we're going to move on into the meat of the discussion. And I'm going to hand over to Natalie, who's going to tell you more about the value of citizen science for research. Oh, no, sorry, I'm one slide ahead. Just a reminder of the other webinars in this series. So we're on the second one now, the value of citizen science in research. Next week is developing a citizen science project. And we've already had one volunteer who'd like to present some slides next week. That's a Dr. Indu Murthy. And you know, she's been leading a citizen science project for a number of years. So she's going to share some of her experience, which is fantastic. It would be great to have maybe one or two others as well to share some experience about the challenges of setting up a citizen science project and developing a citizen science project in India, and maybe what could be learned from that. So please do volunteer in the chat or send an email to myself or my colleagues, and the email addresses will be available for everyone towards the end. And then you'll see that webinar 4, we're starting to look at how citizen science and research connects with business. Webinar 5, some of the tools that could be available and could be used. And webinar 6, our overall ambition is to build a community here so that by the time we've done these webinars, we could actually be doing some collaborative projects, thinking beyond the current coronavirus crisis. How could we be working together? Okay, now I am genuinely going to hand over to Natalie for the next slide.
Hello everyone. So judging by the poll, it looks like people are at least slightly aware of some of the values of citizen science in research. Certainly it can have huge potential to strengthen and extend the activities of researchers, whether they're academics or NGOs or from business. Research projects are often constrained in data collection capacity because of limited project staff and budgets. But if you can deploy an army of citizen volunteers in an effective way, you can actually collect far greater volumes of data with greater spatial and temporal coverage than can be achieved just by the project staff alone, and at a relatively low cost as well. And this could include taking samples in specific weather conditions or flow conditions, and just allowing you to be in more places at once than potentially you could just with your own small team. So provided the project methods and techniques are well designed, trained volunteers can contribute meaningful scientific data to help you achieve project goals. And this ability for citizen scientists to contribute is really being enhanced by the ever-increasing range of low-cost, reliable technologies such as smartphones and low-cost sensors and apps for recording things. So it's actually really a very exciting time to be in research and trying to integrate these tools and citizen science into established research methodologies. And another important consideration is project legacy. engaging local stakeholders and volunteers and training them and supporting them actually also empowers them to take ownership of your project, ownership of your research goals. And that can have some really fantastic outcomes, not just behavioural change by educating people and outreaching. For example, you could change behaviours such as not throwing plastic in the local river. Or, and this has happened in the UK, actually projects can then continue once the funding has ended and the research staff are no longer working on the project. We actually have some examples where the project is continued by the volunteers on their own. They carry on collecting data and sustaining inputs. So this really actually helps with project legacy. So quite rightly, funders are increasingly interested in linking citizen science with research, and it can actually really widen the range of funding opportunities available by involving citizens and communities in the right way. So that's certainly my perspective from the UK. Now over to Saurabh for his perspective from India, from Earth 5R.
Hi. So yeah, that I'll go to what we're doing at Earth 5R and citizen scientists. And basically, our approach is that we are focusing more on communities running these programs and working with research organizations. So it's like, I would say that it is the need of the community. It's trying to solve the local issues using scientists as a service provider or the solution providers. That's our approach. And as Albert Einstein said that, you know, if I were to given 1 hour to save the planet, I would spend 59 minutes defining the problem and 1 minute in solving it, which is basically that it's very, very important to understand the problem and work on the problem at a grassroots level and then design the solutions. And that's what at Earth 5R, our approach has always been, that work with the communities and reach out to the people at the grassroots level, which are most affected by environmental issues at the bottom of the pyramid, because their needs are very basic needs like water, energy, and food, and those kind of resources. And those are larger needs of the community. And we believe that, you know, science has to help and address these issues, larger issues. So that's why what we do is like, for us, citizen science is not at the core, but it is one of those tools that we use to solve these larger issues using citizens as you know, as a base. So what we do is like we design different types of programs where let's say a particular group of citizens would take up a certain task, whether it's a river that is, for example, in the project that we're talking about with Warwick University and Thames Group, is that there's a river in Pune called Mulamutha River, which is extremely polluted, one of the most polluted rivers in the country. And this river is having a lot of plastic and a lot of sewage coming from the industries. So for example, our team at Pune, the citizens at Pune, have been week after week, they have been you know, busy cleaning and taking out the plastic from the river. They're also training the businesses and vendors by the street who are responsible for pushing a lot of waste in the river. So and then we have been also been, you know, doing the numbers, like, you know, how much of total plastic, what is the total non-biodegradable, how much is biodegradable plastic, and also we share this information with the research organization. And that's one thing we'll be working with Warwick University, like provide them a lot of data, and also see that, you know, during when we start offering them solutions, and what is the effectiveness of those solutions. Like, you know, or, if we have developed certain solution, then we also have to track week after week that, you know, the total amount of plastic that is coming out, is it reducing or not? If we have developed a solution like circular economy, where we are training women living in that belt on how to make products out of certain kind of waste, is that reducing the total amount of waste in the river or not? So that data collection and sharing the data and analyzing the data is very, very important. And after that, obviously, we believe that that data has to reach to policymakers, which is with the government. So basically, citizens are at the bottom of the pyramid, where they're collecting all the data, they're doing the work, they share the data with universities or research organization, they develop the solutions, and then after that, that solution goes back to the community level, it's implemented. We again share the the data and analyze the data, and based on that, we share that information with the research policymakers, government, so they can make policies that can, we don't have to reinvent the wheel every time, but these solutions can be shared by different governments, and we can really make a big difference using these kind of projects. So that's our project, that's our idea. Our approach is that we believe that solving real problem is very, very important. It should reduce the overall cost of the entire solution. The impact should be large scale, which means it should be scalable. It should be model based, which can be used at many locations or many countries. It should be very fast, because the world is changing very fast. There are new problems, and the solutions have to be fast. And very importantly, one of the firm things that we have always been speaking, that we should not create to suit the solution, but build solutions that actually solve those larger problems. And also very important, as I said earlier, that measuring the effectiveness and improving in real time through surveys is very, very important. So
fantastic.
Yeah,
we have some images of some of your work, I think, Sarah.
Yeah. So these are the images. One now, if you can see on the top left, is the image of Powai Lake in Mumbai, where our citizen volunteers have conducted these cleanup programs week after week. And the movement started very small, but eventually several hundreds of volunteers got involved in this program. We started segregating the waste on the site, and we segregated in metal and glasses and different types of plastics and non-recyclable plastics. And then we work with rat pickers and other people in the society who are given this waste, so they can make use of this waste, or they can send it for recycling, which we track also. And non-recyclable waste is given to the municipality, which is a very, very small portion. Literally only 10% of the waste goes to the municipality. So 90% of the waste goes back to the system. And also we have educated buildings and businesses near the lake. We know that where the waste is coming from. That has seen a huge reduction in total waste amount. So when this project started, within 1 year's time, the waste reduction, the total amount of waste which was found in this lake was literally only 25%. So there was 75% reduction of waste, which is like a very big success for us. So that was Powai Lake program. And then the second image you see is the plantation program, in which we're using citizens to, they provide their compost after the waste management at their residential level. And this compost is given to the women living in the slum, where they use the compost in the soil, and we train them into horticulture. They grow saplings, and once they have grown saplings, we buy these saplings from these women, which creates livelihood for them. And then we use it for plantation programs. So this is for urban reforestation programs. So this is also an image from Mumbai. And as you can see, these are the women. We provide them, money via check. So this is a proof of circular economy. And next image you can see on the bottom left is how citizens are training people in the nearby slums how to make paper bags. And these paper bags are later on sold in the local market. So it's a waste provided by the citizens, which is converted into products, which goes back to the market, which they eventually buy. This is an example of circular economy. So these are solutions which are scalable and sustainable. And when we say that, citizen science is important, we also say that citizen science is very, very important, but more important, it should result into some circular economy based businesses. Then only it's truly sustainable. It has to result into revenue generation for the community. So that's our approach towards circular economy and citizen science.
Sorry, Natalie, you're on mute.
Brilliant. Good start. So some fantastic examples there from Sarab in India. I've got a few more examples here just to share with you of some other ways that citizens can be recruited into research. This first example here, Rainfall Rescue. is an example from the UK, and I'm sure in India as well we have the same problem whereby old records from weather stations are all written on paper. So that's a huge barrier to them being used in research for climate studies, for example. So the University of Reading here in the UK actually appealed for volunteers, and I was one of those volunteers actually, to help them digitalise 200 years worth of rainfall records from UK weather stations. So that was an estimated 65,000 sheets containing millions of data points. You can see an example there on the top right of your screen. Beautiful handwritten sheets. And this was very, very successful. The task was actually completed by members of the public in less than 3 weeks. So hopefully that's got you thinking about some records that you have in your catchments that would be really, really useful for research. And all that's needed to get involved with something like this is a computer. So can be a very efficient way of acquiring data using citizen science. The second example there, Outfall Safari, has been very, very successful here in the UK. It's a citizen science methodology for detecting, evaluating and reporting polluted pipes that are draining directly into rivers. And the aim of this project is to fill the gap for evidence gathering and reporting that's preventing pollution issues from being resolved. So this was developed by a partnership in the UK, including regulators, so the UK Environment Agency, also the local water authority, NGOs, including Thames 21, and the Zoological Society of London, and also the local communities in London. So it's been in operation since 2016, and it's now actually a national project. And the way it works is citizen groups are trained to walk along rivers and assess every single outfall that they see. And they give it a score, and there's an app that's been developed as part of this project for them to upload their data. And it's now actually used by water companies as a way of managing their assets. So it's a really nice example of how local people can integrate data effectively into meaningful solutions, because the water companies are then aware of the problems, which outfalls are most polluting, and they can actually start trying to tackle these. And potentially both of these examples would translate very, very well into India. And I think it's now over to Sarah for more about how we're trying to build a citizen science toolkit that could potentially be used by both our countries.
Great, thank you. So I wanted to share with you how I'm building citizen science capacity into my own research and kind of the origin of the project that the team here is putting together at the moment. So for me, I hadn't actually used citizen science in research before, or at least knowingly, but I knew that this was something that I really wanted to explore. So I'm currently involved in a collaborative research project between the University of Warwick and the Indian Institute of Technology in Bombay. And this project is called Pathways, and it's all about gaining a process level understanding of how pollution moves in an environment. But one of the main goals of this project is to basically translate this science into understanding that can be used to tackle water quality challenges, with a specific focus on Thane, which is in Mumbai. Get the next slide, please, Anne. So one of the ways that we basically track our pollutants, to give you just an idea of kind of the methods that we use, is to basically inject a harmless fluorescent dye called rhodamine into our catchment, which acts as a proxy for our pollutant. And then we basically trace this pollutant as it moves down the catchment using fluorometers that basically measure the amount of fluorescence. And we get a concentration graph, a little bit like the one that I've included at the bottom of the slide. And this graph can tell us really useful information about water flow, how long the pollutant might remain in the system, and then areas where that pollutant might get caught up. Give the next slide. Great. However, in the Pathways project, the community engagement element was very much at the end of the project as kind of a stakeholder workshop. But for me, I really wanted to integrate the community much earlier in the project development. and for the research to be driven by the community rather than the other way around. I think this is especially important because one of the outputs of this project was to try and design water quality monitoring strategies that reflected the community needs. So we needed to get that community insight. And I think this builds on what Sarah was saying about taking that grassroots approach to understanding the area that you're working in. So I attended a very timely workshop last May, and I connected and met with the Thames 21 team and the ALP Synergy team, and I got to learn about some of the approaches that they were taking. And I started to think that these could be used in pathways. So I convinced them to come out to India with me in September. This is also where we met Sarah from Earth 5R, and we began to basically grow a partnership to explore how citizen science can be used to support water quality monitoring. Next slide. So the objective of our team is basically to create a citizen science toolkit, which is going to comprise of a set of accessible research protocols for communities to investigate water quality. And these are going to be standardized protocols to allow us to basically facilitate comparable studies. So we're going to be exploring the citizen science methodologies that Thames 21 uses and Earth 5R use in order to basically build this toolkit. So basically conducting twin investigations in the UK and India and drawing this together to form the toolkit. The idea is that this toolkit's going to be adaptable. So we want it to be able to be used by other communities and other catchments. And basically allow the communities to select the appropriate tools based on their catchment needs and the community questions that they have regarding their catchment. And I'm also hoping that this is going to encourage researchers to integrate citizen science into their research as well. So one of the elements of this is also thinking about how we can convert our fluorescent dye tracing into, I guess, a citizen science friendly methodology. This is something that we're looking at doing with Thames 21, and I think Natalie's just going to give us a brief overview of why that is important.
Yes, so it's potentially very exciting for us because it will help us to extend the outfall safari methodology that's already so successful. So citizens at the moment can identify the location of a polluted outfall, but the dye tracing will also enable us to understand its pathways to the river and also into the river when it's in the river, which is the next step towards fixing the problem. So the Wealdstone Brook is a tributary of the River Brent, which then flows into the River Thames in London. And it suffers from many issues, a lot of which will be very familiar to yourselves in India as well. And one of them in particular that's a problem is there's a lot of old crumbling concrete between the pipe networks in the very old Victorian sewer system. So it's a very challenging situation to understand, with water and pollution just migrating between pipes in the network, as well as being directly put into the river by industries and misconnected piping and other things. The water companies currently are being very, very slow to act on this situation. And the aim is to develop Sarah's dye tracing methodology in conjunction with our local groups in the Wealdstone Brook catchment. And this is being done with support from the local water company as well. They're also very interested in this. And the idea is that we can develop a methodology for tracking the pollution. We'll test it in the Wealdstone Brook catchment, but then also roll it out as a methodology that can be applied across London in all of the different catchments we work in, and also potentially in India as well as part of the toolkit. So hopefully very citizen friendly and very, very powerful for pollution tracing.
Perfect. Next slide then. Great. So as I discussed, as part of building this collaborative citizen science toolkit, our teams are going to be involved in these twin investigations in both the UK and India. So the Earth 5R team is going to come over to London and see firsthand the citizen science methodologies that the Thames 21 team employ around London. And then equally, we as a team are also going to go out to meet with Earth 5R and start to work with Sarab and his team in an area in Pune in relation to the Mula River and growing citizen science to help to understand the water quality problem, as Sarah mentioned. So this is an example of how citizen science can be used to kind of build a toolkit, but we're also looking for other examples of citizen science methodologies that could be used to help to grow this toolkit. So this leads us, I guess, really nicely on to thinking about some of the discussion questions, which is if you could be part of helping to shape this toolkit. So we're constantly looking for the new ideas that could go into building this toolkit. And also if you would be interested in using a citizen science toolkit like this within your catchment.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Natalie. Thank you, Sarah. So we're open to contributions now. I spotted about a minute ago that somebody raised their hand, but if you can see my cursor moving around, that's because I'm looking through the list of attendees to see who raised their hand, but I can't quite see it. So maybe if maybe you've put it down, but if you want to raise your hand again, if somebody wants to say something or ask a question, that would be great. Okay, I can't see anything coming up there. So in the chat then, have we got any questions coming through? Certainly had some volunteers, Paula, I think. Are you muted, Paula?
Excuse me. I also seem to have lost my voice temporarily. So I've posted the questions in the chat if people would rather write them than raise their hands. Or if you raise your hand, you can ask us using the audio. You say, there were some volunteers in the chat. I'm not seeing what you...
I think somebody highlighted that they've been doing some work in the Mula Muta, so would be keen to share their insight.
Yes, I just don't note a little earlier when Sarah was talking, Pooja Shindu mentioned having worked on the Mula Muta in water quality and citizen science in 2014.
Ah, excellent. So there are things to build upon, some wider insight as well. Any questions in the chat or any points from others?
Pooja, would you like to share something if you have any insights, or maybe you can share later on if you want, you can share the details which will be useful for us.
Part of your dissertation. Excellent. So yeah, we'll Sarab shared his email address there. I think it would be great to connect in. Oh, right. Okay. I see somebody has their hand up now. So I can allow you to talk, Pooja. Your microphone should be enabled now, Pooja.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you, Pooja.
Yes, so this is, I want to talk about that. It was a part of my master's thesis where we have worked on Mula Muta River in collaboration with Earthwatch Institute India. So the Earthwatch Institute India has developed a small test, water quality test kits where we can test nitrate and phosphate and turbidity from the water, and you just don't have to do anything. So you just have to add few drops of water in the solutions given. So there were like small tubes in which three small different tubes in which you have to add few drops of the water, and the color changes gives you the idea that whether the water has excess amount of nitrate or phosphate or the turbidity. So that was the basics of it, to understand that what is the quality of water in Mula Muta River. So we used to take 25 participants from the HSBC employees. So it was part of CSR plus citizen science. So we have combined these two different aspects of research. And I was analyzing that whether it can be a useful tool for research or not. And at the end, it turned out to be a very good tool because when people start uploading data on the global platform, which can be a person who is sitting across, probably abroad, not living in India, or probably living in the other parts of India, can also analyze and understand that what is the current actual quality of different water bodies. So I wanted to understand, the project was basically to identify that whether we can use this tool of citizen science in different projects also or not. So that was it.
Okay, thank you. Natalie, I feel as though maybe you should contribute there.
Sure, I would love to. So I am now I live in Mumbai, so I wanted to work more on the shores of Mumbai. So how citizen science can we can involve about maintaining our beaches in Mumbai, since, and how can the citizen science be an important tool for conserving our marine ecosystem and mitigate and encourage people to contribute towards marine pollution. So I want to work on that. I would love to work on that. So just so that's why I'm attending such webinars, which can be helpful, in future.
Right.
Who is that? Samrita? Did we just heard to Samrita or to whom?
So that was Pooja speaking then. Sarah?
No, after Pooja. After Pooja, someone was speaking from Mumbai.
No, it was still Pooja. I've got everybody else is muted, so I know nobody else could talk.
Okay. All right. Okay, so Pooja is now in Mumbai.
Yes.
Okay. So by the way, Pooja, we would be glad to know more from you. I have shared my email address with you, so get in touch with us if possible, and we can definitely make use of your learnings and the work that you guys have done in Mulla Motha now that we're doing this project, as well as at Mumbai in Methi River.
We also have a suggestion from Nitin Pandit that we may want to connect with a Pune-based group called Jeevit Nadi for citizen science.
Yeah, that's great. I'm noting it down.
Okay, thanks.
A question that perhaps Natalie or Sarah might be able to answer is how can we share some details on the toolkit, either now, verbally, or later?
I'm literally just writing a response to this question. I'm about to press enter. So we wanted to start building our citizen science toolkit this May, basically. We were meant to be out in India now, but we're not able to do that at the moment. But the tools are going to be drawn from across Thames 21's experience and Earth 5R's experience of the successful tools that they've basically used to engage citizens surrounding water quality. But we'd obviously love to hear about more examples of tools that can basically be brought into the toolkit. By tools, I mean basically accessible research protocols that can be used by the community to address water quality. So this can range from, for example, the outfall safaris as an example of a tool, the fluorescent dye tracing, but also, as discussed on here, also those water quality testing kits as well would be another example of a tool that we'd be very interested to integrate into the toolkit as well.
Brilliant. And I think I wanted to bring Natalie in because I know that Natalie's connected with similar projects to Pooja was describing there. And I think Pooja also mentioned HSBC funding, and I know that Thames 21 gets some of that. You're still muted, Natalie. You're nodding. And what I think one thing that's really important is that different toolkits have different strengths and weaknesses. But it might be that there might be a very simple tool that's brilliant for getting communities engaged, but isn't brilliant for research. But actually, you have to take those communities and citizen scientists on a journey and develop them with those tools. Natalie, over to you.
Yeah, I would completely agree. As you say, some tools have more of an educational and behavioural influencing benefit, whereas others are much more valuable for research and also for data that is accepted by authorities as evidence of a problem. And I think at the moment, the two are quite separate, but this is the advantage of some of the cheaper low-cost tools and apps that are becoming available increasingly. And also it really depends on the project you have as well. Is your aim to influence behaviour and take the citizens on a journey, or is your aim mainly to collect high-quality scientific data? And I think the word data as well could be explored too, because what is evidence for what you need? This could be something as simple as a photograph of something happening, an outfall polluting, for example. So thinking about what actually constitutes evidence, and therefore what tool can be applied to help you address that issue, really varies depending on the project. So the toolkit is supposed to be a wide range of tools with some guidance on how to apply them, and hopefully to incorporate a wide range of different circumstances, but also a kit that can be applied so that data can be collected in different catchments, but you can actually then do analysis across lots of different data sets, rather than lots of little projects all doing slightly different techniques. That's the aim.
Great. And I think Sarabi has highlighted a link to a website that's got some toolkits. So that's fantastic. We can go and look at that. And we know that there are others out there. So, you know, we challenged ourselves when we described the fact that we were creating another toolkit. But I think the fact that NERC are funding activity in this area re-emphasizes the fact that whilst there might be lots of tools and there's lots of toolkits, there's still something not quite happening between research, citizen science, and impact. So, you know, we want to explore that space. We want to try to, as Sarab described, create things that are scalable, replicable, and give confidence to the communities that if they collect the data on the Mula Muta River, it could be comparable with data for the Mitti River in Mumbai, but equally for the Thames in London and for other rivers. So, you know, we're trying to be in that space between research and citizen science and bring it all together.
The ACRO work does look very interesting. We've seen it already, but we haven't yet made contact. But it's kind of one of the prime projects and activities that we're curious about. What can we learn from each other?
Okay, I think there might be another hand up. Let me just move my window so that I can see. Oh no, maybe that's still just not been lowered. Okay, does anybody else have a question, or given what you've heard today, is anybody really eager to be able to share some insight from their work next week? I mean, Pooja, you might wish to share some of your work that you've described with a few slides. I think you said it was 2014, so you might feel that you've not really got the depth of content to share anymore, but we'd be keen to hear. But yeah, if others wish to share, I know we've got a lot of researchers on today, so there must be some quality stuff out there. Oh, and we have Pranav raised his hand, so I will allow you to talk, Pranav. There you go. You should be unmuted at my end.
Hello everyone. I'm Pranav from Bihar, India. So I have been part of a citizen science project which was based on ecology, and it is more focused on herbivory of a forest. Basically, the forest was moist deciduous forest, and we were a group of students who were collecting leaf samples, and we were just on the basis of number of leaves from a branch, we were telling that the percentage of herbivory in each tree. So this was a project from my professor, and he was a contributor from data from India. He was the only contributor, and the project was from all over the world, from different continents. There were different professors. So this was it, and we contributed data, and the paper is published now. So that's all I have to share. Thank you.
Okay, sounds interesting. Thank you. So we've got a couple of minutes left. If anybody else wants to highlight anything, whilst I give you a chance to do that, I'm going to flip on to the last slide so that we don't run out of time, and just highlight again that this is part of a webinar series. We've tried to break the content down and the whole topic into bite-sized chunks. So each chunk is sharing some content, allowing time for discussion. Today has been about the value of citizen science, and we've just tried to share some examples of where that has been realised and some examples of good citizen science projects. But next week we want to get into a little bit into the bones of developing a citizen science project. As I mentioned, we have one volunteer already to share some content. We have content ourselves to share, but we'd like it to be a sharing from both sides. So if you do wish to share something, please do mention it in the chat. We'll export that so that we can review that again afterwards, or email any one of us, or Leslie's details are there as well. You also see the QR code there, so those who've got their smartphones with a camera on, feel free to just snap that QR code and take you straight to the survey. We will email you within 15 minutes with a link to that survey. We only got about 10% of the people give us feedback last week, which is good, but the more people that give us feedback, the better we can improve the webinars for the rest of the series. So please do take the 2 minutes it will take to fill in the feedback. And then later today, UK time, so probably don't wait up for it, but we'll share a link to the video of the webinar and the registration link for next week's webinar on the 14th of May. So whilst I've been talking there, so I think Pooja said, try to share some results. I'll check back on that. I think you're volunteering there, Pooja, so that sounds great. Thank you. And will the recording be available for view later? It will, yes. We'll share the link to that. So if you haven't watched last week's, the link has been shared. When we share the new link for this one, you'll be able to go and watch both of them, and we'll build up the whole 6 webinars in one place so that in 12 months' time, people can go and have a look. Any final points from the audience or from other panelists? Remember to unmute.
We have a question in the Q&A.
We have a question in the Q&A.
From Yugal Sandilya, saying, in developing countries like India, households want piped water supplies, sewer systems, but they can't afford that. Whereas on the other hand, non-pipe solutions of simple technologies, which are cheap but effective, but demand for them is low as they fail to attract people. My question is, can citizen science help in people to attract such cheap technologies? If yes, how? Also, can citizen science be helpful in policy intervention and water sectors in the developing countries? There are a few questions in there. They're all worth consideration. I think we should carry this forward to the next call, if that's all right.
That's fine with me. Are there any, is it just a first view maybe from Sarab? Sarab, might feel as though some of that's in your territory. If you want to just share a quick view. You're muted at the moment.
Yeah.
There we go.
Just a second. Yeah, just a second.
We can hear you, but we've lost your sight. But
yeah, sorry, wrong button pressed. Yeah, sorry. Is this a question about the citizen science for the water, for the supply, the pipe water?
Yeah. So do you think if you employed a citizen science approach to help illustrate the benefits of some of the cheap technologies to citizens, maybe?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. For one reason is that there are 2 things here. One is like everybody has a smartphone, so it's very easy for people to learn new things and share things with simple formats using just the things like Chrome, like just the browser. And if there is an app, of course, that makes it very, very easy. And second thing is like people are willing these days, they are more participative, and they are more knowledgeable also, and they're willing to be part of change, and they want to build the solutions. And if we can, there are a lot of challenges at the community level, especially related with water in India. And if we can have certain projects or programs where they can build solutions, I think that it will be very effective, because policymakers and scientists cannot reach everywhere, and the challenges are very, very diverse. The challenge or related with drinking water or water supply in one part of one community versus another community can differ. So a collective ideation and collective solution building is the future. Actually, we can save a lot of cost, as well as we can build solutions which can be surprisingly simple and effective.
Yeah. And I think, as Paula points out, a lot of those questions there start to link into the content of the next couple of webinars as well. The value of citizen science for business, and what the overall impacts could be. So so thank you very much for that question, Yugal, and we will carry that over and make sure that that's fed into the content for future webinars. So my watch says we're running over by a minute. Unless there are any great reasons to carry on, I would like to thank everybody for joining us today, thanking our presenters as well. Some great content. It really just shows that, no matter what the world does to us, you can lock us down, you can lock us in, we can stay connected, and we can keep doing good things together. So yeah, thank you very much for your sharing and your collaboration. I will leave the webinar open for a minute or so while I just extract the chat so that we've got it for a record. But yeah, thank you everyone. Please do complete the type form response to give us feedback on this webinar, and hopefully we'll see you all next week, or the week after, or the week after. Thank you everyone. Take care. Goodbye. Right, and I'm going to switch my camera off so you don't see me doing what I'm doing. Stop video.